Everybody, and welcome back to this fantasy football video. I guess still going on these, and actually been quite a lot of fun doing them. We have a pretty interesting week this week. I think there's some very interesting results, definitely, and quite a lot to talk about actually. So I'll go through the points first, I guess, and then we'll chat about the games that were. So, okay, 67 points, as you can see, average of 50, highest of 119, so actually did really well, I think. 700,000th out of 5.2 million is pretty good. Brings us down to an overall rank of 2,400,000, which, while not great, is less than half, so, you know, that's something, I guess. Now, interesting team this week. I've got a kind of story to tell. So, I think I changed a little bit, didn't I, last week? So I took out Bally and put in Jones. I didn't want to make too many more changes because I was like, I keep losing points for making changes, and it doesn't really seem to matter too much. So I thought I'll just kind of stick with what I've got, even though it might not be a great week, considering some teams are playing other big teams and things like that. But once I finished recording, I was like, oh, I've got to remember to just keep an eye on things before the weekend and change anything that needs changing, basically. And so I go to do it Friday, and I completely forgot there was a Friday game. It's not a usual thing. I think it might be new to this season that we have Friday games. And so obviously it cut off, so I was stuck with what I've got. And then Phil Jones is coming up as injured, and I was like, oh damn, I've replaced Bally, who's not playing, and probably will play because Phil Jones is injured. And also I made a terrible mistake in that I wanted Lukaku to be captain over Kane because Man United are playing Huddersfield, right? That makes total sense. Lukaku's going to get a few goals there, obviously. So as it turns out, what happened was Phil Jones did play and then got injured after approximately 22 minutes. Went off injured. Apparently he was playing quite well up till then. And as it turns out, Harry Kane had a fantastic weekend. So as you can see, he got 32 points because he's my captain as well. So he was on 16 normally, and ended up with 32 because captain doubles the points, anyone who chooses a captain. So it actually worked out really well for me. I would love to take credit for it, but I can't. It was a mistake. If there wasn't that Friday game, I would have changed the captain to Lukaku, most likely. So, and I would have had, I don't know, maybe like 10 less points this week, and it wouldn't have looked anywhere near as good as 67, which is actually one of my highest, I think, points. Can we see game week? Yeah. Okay, 77, that was my highest. But yeah, otherwise second highest points for the week, which is pretty good, I think. So pretty happy with that. So obviously Man United we'll get to didn't have a very good weekend. Lukaku did get an assist though, I believe it was an assist, yeah it was an assist, so he ended up with 5. No clean sheet for De Gea. Agazi for West Brom. He hasn't been doing very well recently. I think I might have to drop him and bring someone else in. I tried to jump on the bandwagon, and unfortunately I jumped on the bandwagon about here, and so I haven't got a lot from him basically. Klasniak, despite Arsenal doing well, didn't do very well, I think, because he played 90 minutes, but did he get a yellow card? No, it's just because they conceded 2, so he didn't. Decor from Watford did really well, got a goal. Didn't keep a clean sheet, obviously. I think Hazard got an assist. Did he get an assist? Yeah, he got an assist as well, so that's not bad. Ali got a goal, I believe, yeah. Sissoko got nothing. He only played for 21 minutes, so he's not playing regularly, so I'm going to drop him and bring someone else in there. Don't quite know who yet, but I'll have a look. Tammy Abraham, I actually thought he'd do well. I genuinely thought Swansea would beat Leicester. Leicester without a manager, of course. I didn't know if I spoke about that last week, but Craig Shakespeare obviously got fired, sacked, left by mutual consent, whatever the hell it was, resigned, I don't know, but he's not there anymore, and I thought Swansea would beat Leicester, so I was kind of disappointed with that. Kane obviously phenomenal, absolutely phenomenal at the minute, and yeah, so pretty happy with the way the week went. And I can't really take any credit for it because it's just because I'm an idiot. So the Friday game was West Ham v Brighton. Brighton winning 3-0 away to West Ham. Now apparently Slaven Bilic is going to be given more time. Personally, I don't think he should be. I think that, like, if we have a look at this, I don't think we can have a look at the team sheets, but trying to see if there is a option to have a look at the team sheets. Lineups, here we go. Okay, so if you look at these team sheets here, okay, so West Ham have got the likes of Javier Hernandez up front, Arnautovic, Lanzini, Antonio, Font and Reed in central defence, Zabaleta, that's a very experienced defence, Joe Hart, very good goalkeeper, and without being totally rude to Brighton, I've only heard of a few of their players. Glenn Murray, who I'm a big fan of, Crystal Palace legend, absolutely, very good player. Anthony Knockhart, very good, although I've heard of him more because of unfortunate circumstances involving like the death of a family member than more about his playing style. And really and truthfully, not much else. I know I've heard of Matt Ryan, who was an ex-Valencia Australian goalkeeper, and this Pascal Groove, I want to say, who keeps scoring goals all the time. But genuinely, like, that's pretty much it. Like, you look at their benches as well. West Ham have got Cresswell, Bonner, Sam Byron, Mark Noble, Andre Ayew on the bench. Brighton, I've only heard of this guy, Ezequiel Schlotto. If West Ham to lose 3-0 away, there has to be serious questions being asked about that. Serious questions. And I mean, that leaves West Ham in the table, leaves them 8 points, level with Everton. We'll come to Everton soon enough. It's just not good enough for them. They spent a fair amount of money. Bilic has had a few seasons with them, and it's just not working. I mean, people can blame the stadium as much as they like and it not fitting and stuff like that, but Spurs have got a similar situation, and they're in the third right now, joint on points with second. So I mean, the other question is, like, if you do sack like Bilic, who do you get in? The big name wandering around at the minute is Carlo Ancelotti, but genuinely don't feel like he would go to West Ham. You're going to step from like Chelsea, Madrid, Bayern Munich to West Ham. It's not really the career path he probably thinks he wants to follow, but for me, I think if I was a West Ham fan, I'd be like, I think Bilic has had his chance, and I don't think he's done well. So I think it's time to move on from there. As for Brighton, I mean, huge congratulations to Brighton. Like, I've always said, like, Crystal Palace and Brighton are supposed to have this really strong rivalry. They do have a really strong rivalry, but like, I used to live very near to Brighton. I spent a lot of time in Brighton, and I like Brighton, so I can't feel that that kind of rivalry with them. And because also they have one of my favourite ever Palace players playing for them, Glenn Murray. I don't feel that like that rivalry or that aminosity towards them that a lot of Crystal Palace fans do, and a lot of Brighton fans feel towards Crystal Palace fans. So I hope they stay up. I really do. And if they carry on like that, they will do. I guess next up we come to the lunchtime Saturday game, which was a bit of a roller coaster, I guess, for both sets of fans. 4-2 to Chelsea in the end, but that is probably flattering Chelsea quite a lot. Watford played really well. Chelsea, once again, didn't play that well. But the mark of a good side is if you, don't play that well, but you still manage to win a game. Defensive questions, I guess, at Chelsea. And yeah, I mean, they were basically, I believe they were like 2-1 down, and then they came back to win 4-2. Batshuayi get 2. It's interesting that Conte doesn't seem to really trust him that much. There's been like lots of rumours that he's going to leave in the January transfer window. That's why Chelsea wanted to pick up Llorente, because Conte just didn't trust Batshuayi in case Morata or whoever else got injured. But he scored 2 goals, so I wonder if this is going to be a bit of a turning point. If Morata being out is going to be a good thing, because it gives Batshuayi a chance to prove himself in this team. And I don't know enough about the guy to know whether or not he's going to be the next Lukaku or whatever, but he looks pretty decent. And if he's happy to kind of like not necessarily play second fiddle to Morata, but at least deputise for him a little bit this season, then that could be a really good backup for them. But as we've seen with Conte, he's quite ruthless with players he doesn't really want, a la Diego Costa. And I guess in a way rightly so. If you, at the end of the day, if your job is on the line, you've got to turn around and make that hard decision. And if you're trying to make, if your job's on the line, you're having to make those decisions. You can't waste time. In the Premier League, you can't turn around and be like, okay, well, I'm going to give him like 4 or 5 games to prove himself, because if you don't get anything from those 4 or 5 games, that's could be your season over. You could have lost so much pace on the rest of the league that you're not going to get it back. So, I think that's one of the reasons why it's so hard for young players to break into Premier League teams, and why Premier League teams are much happier to go off and buy established players and pay that sort of money for them than try and bring through young players, because the Premier League is cutthroat. It is a competition, as we'll see from some of the results. Every game is a tough one. It's not necessarily like, with no disrespect meant, but in like the Italian league, the French league, definitely, Spanish league, definitely, German league, there are easy games for those bigger sides. There are games where it's like they don't have to be at 100% to comfortably win that game. They can bring in 2 or 3 youngsters, to give a go and have a go. Whereas the Premier League is so competitive that, if you, field even a slightly weakened side, out of choice, not only could you end up losing that game, but you will get hammered for it as a manager. And that could mean the difference between, getting a European place, or it could mean the difference between winning the league or, doing whatever. And so when I see players like, I see like Chelsea, for example, buying players left, right and centre, and they have all these young players coming through, not necessarily getting a chance, and they're loaning them out, and you go, why the hell would they loan out Tammy Abraham to Swansea when they kind of need him? If Conte doesn't rate Batshuayi, then Abraham could have taken that place. But it's generally because, God, go away, home up. God, sorry guys. I hate it when it does that. My internet's on a little bit of the blink again, so you'll have to excuse me. Yeah, it's ridiculous. I think sometimes, like, how competitive it is, and loans are important, but like, as we see so many times, players will go off on loan. They'll have a good loan. They'll do well, and they'll come back and they just won't get a chance anywhere. So, and with the amount of money in the Premier League, and managers needing instant results, like you can see that with De Boer at Palace, Craig Shakespeare at Leicester. Like, it's ruthless. If you don't get that start you want or you need, then you're out. Basically, we'll bring someone else in, unless you have that clout already, or you have a very patient club, Ronald Koeman at Everton being an example, Slaven Bilic at West Ham. I guess if you're a bit more of a name, you get to stay a bit longer, but you can kind of understand why managers are out there just being like, yeah, spend 20 million on this player, rather than they might have an equivalent player in their youth system to bring through, but they can't take that risk. And the other risk is that fans will say, oh, you didn't spend any money, that's why we're in this problem right now. So you have to admire when managers do try and bring through young players. Everton being an example of that, Spurs as well, are bringing through young players. It kind of sounds like a no-brainer. Like you invest in an academy and a youth system, you bring players through, you pay little to nothing money for them compared to the 20 million you're going to spend on that player. And not only do they have more of an affinity with the club and the fans because you brought them through your system, but you've saved a lot of money doing it. And it sounds like a no-brainer, doesn't it? But in the world of football, where results are needed right now, managers often don't have the time to do that. So, yeah, it's a shame. But one of the reasons why people are saying that the English national team is so poor is because a lot of players, young players, are not being given a chance to come through and play on a regular basis. Whereas in the past, before the Premier League was probably the giant that it is now, you had the likes of Man United just bringing through a whole generation of players through the ranks, and a lot of other teams as well doing the same. Arsenal brought through quite a lot, and yeah, on the one hand we get the exciting entertainment value of the Premier League. Every game is usually a battle, a competition, featuring best players from around the world. But on the other hand of things, English players are perhaps finding it hard to make their mark. And the final bit on that, actually, just as I go massively off topic, I guess, is that, whereas you see in a lot of other, national teams, players play in leagues all around the world. So take the Brazilian team, for example, their national league isn't very strong, or it's not terrible, but it's not like a European strong league, and so their players play all over Europe, and it doesn't matter to their national team. They get game time at the end of the day. Whereas English players, name me English players who play abroad, other than Gareth Bale's obviously Welsh, but other than Gareth Bale, British players, they just don't really play abroad, do they? It's not a thing. I don't know, I think it's a culture thing. I think a lot of the time British players like to, they know the English culture, they're brought up in that, and that's where they stay. And probably the other side of it is money. They just get paid more here than they would do elsewhere. Real Madrid, Barcelona, PSG probably being the exception to that rule. But yeah, anyway, that was a massively off-topic tangent there. Rudely interrupted by my internet. So yeah, Chelsea 4-2, as I said. Pedro scored a really great goal actually to start it off. Decor getting a goal, which was obviously good for me. Watford are looking like a really good side. I think they'll be really disappointed with that. I think Mauro Silva said afterwards that they shouldn't have lost that game, and they're probably right. But fair play to Chelsea, they did win it. Next up we have the shock of the weekend, I think without doubt for a lot of people, Huddersfield at home beating Man United. A lot of people have been saying that this has kind of, Man United have had the wind knocked out their sails a little bit by that Liverpool game. Now, Liverpool and Man United was 0-0, but Man United turned up with very little intention to actually attack Liverpool, and probably were trying to play for a 0-0, 1-0. They got a 0-0. People will see that, I guess, as a good result. But from a mentality point of view, it's not good. If you look at someone like Man City, I think Man City walk into every match right now with a swagger and a confidence that they can play anybody in this league off the park. And when you have that confidence and it keeps rolling, you get that momentum. If your manager then tells you in your next game, right, guys, we're going to play defensively, you don't let them score. You know, break down possession. You know, how does that affect your confidence? You know, psychologically, so much of like football in the Premier League is determined by very small things, but actually, like, psychology is a really big thing. You know, the confidence that players have to play, to try out things, to be creative, to, you know, maybe shoot from distance instead of like passing it, is incredibly important. And I genuinely feel like that sometimes Mourinho is too cautious for his own good. Like, he's too worried about losing to actually win. And I mean, obviously they went to win this game, and Huddersfield just kind of outplayed them, and they didn't look half as good as they have been looking. And when you see this Man United side, I look at it and think, wow, that's actually an exciting, like, powerful side. They have some very good young players like Rashford, who did score, obviously. And they have some very good, like, older players as well in there. You know, Matic, Mata, those types of players. And it looked like their defence was looking a bit better. Lindelof, the new signing from Benfica, I think he was, did not have a good game. But you know, there you go. I guess maybe if Phil Jones had stayed on and not got injured, we'd be looking at a different result here. Maybe a 1-0 for Man United. But I still think sometimes, like, Mourinho needs to just kind of, I don't know, worry less about losing and let his players express themselves a little bit more. I know that's the way he's won so many things and done that many things, but I feel like when he was at Porto, yeah, they could have that siege mentality because they were up against much bigger clubs. And when he was at Inter, it was the same thing. It's like that siege mentality, and it was almost the same at Chelsea as well. You know, he's battling against the likes of Ferguson, Man United, and Man City coming through, and Arsenal, Wenger's Arsenal as well, when they were a lot better, and they could have that kind of underdog siege mentality. But when he went to like Real Madrid and now Man United, there's an expectation level there to be better than your opponent, to be superior, to outplay your opponent, to beat, not only just to beat your opponent, but to absolutely destroy them. You know, and I think that's what riles up the fans a little bit. Is when they don't do that, because they feel like, and I mean, kind of rightly so, the amount of money Man United have spent, they should have a vastly superior team to Huddersfield, like they should do. But here we are, Huddersfield win 2-1, and then the Man City game here, 3-0 against Burnley. I said, Burnley would be a tough match for Man City, but I feel like that confidence and swagger they're taking into games now is, he's just on fire. De Bruyne is playing incredibly well. He is being given that license to kind of do what he wants and be creative, and I think that's the difference between, like, I feel like if you swapped managers over with Man City and Man United, you would see, obviously, like, it's not just, people often say like, oh, it's more about the players and what they do, but like, if a manager is telling you is more worried about you tracking back and being more defensive than going out there and just obliterating your opponent, then it's going to have an effect on you. And I'm not saying necessarily that Guardiola's got the right technique or Jose Mourinho has got the right technique. They're both incredibly successful managers. Have both achieved more than a lot of other managers ever will do. But I think that expectation level for Mourinho, when he is that they will go out there and they will win those games. And as somebody who is as abrasive as him, it doesn't sit well with him when they don't win those games. So it'll be interesting to see how Man United come back from this and what they do. In some ways, Man United are a very, very good cup team, as in, I feel like they could do very well in the Champions League this year because they have that better mentality for those types of games, whereas Man City are probably, I feel like, a better setup for a league, where they can just dominate their weaker opponents more and they'll win those games. But we'll see, won't we? As I said, Man City 5 points clear at the I mean, it should be, shouldn't it? Like, people can talk about the money Man United have spent, but Man City have spent just as much, if not more. And if they don't win the league this season, it will be a failure. If they don't get to probably at least the semi-finals of the Champions League, it will be a failure. So, you know, it'll be interesting to see, especially if like Spurs are back on track, if Man United can come back from this, that sort of pressure, how that will affect, you know, the team. Because I mean, at the end of the day, a lot of what Guardiola has been used to is having like one, sometimes two opponents in the league. So in Spain, most of the time it was Real Madrid, occasionally Atletico Madrid. Germany, when he was at Bayern Munich, it was, I would say Dortmund, but I think they had a bit of a dip when he was there, and they kind of comfortably romped the league. So it will be interesting to see how he reacts if there are other teams putting pressure on him. You know, we saw last season with Chelsea, Man City really dropped off, but I guess it's up to teams to put pressure on them and see how that goes. So it's going to be an interesting season, actually, very interesting. Newcastle 1, Crystal Palace 0. I mean, you can see the late goal. Would have been happy with 0-0. There would have been a good result. Apparently, we played really well. We were looking much the better side. I feel like we needed a point there. That could be costly. But fair play to Newcastle. We're having a good season again. I've always loved Newcastle. They've kind of been soured a bit recently because their owner Mike Ashley, who just comes across as like a quite horrible person. I don't know if he is or not, but he does come across like that. But I think they're up for sale now, and if they can get in a really good owner who's going to invest and back Rafa Benitez, who is clearly a very, very good manager, then they could go places because they have that support. You know, their home games are worth an extra man, and that's a cliche, but it's a phenomenal atmosphere, and you know their fans are like, you know, if you're not from the UK, you probably don't know too much about the kind of geography of the UK or whatever, but Newcastle is situated in the north of England, and without wanting to be rude to anybody around Newcastle, but Newcastle can be a grim place. Like, it's very much like a working kind of class kind of area. My grandfather is actually from Sunderland, which is like right next door to Newcastle, so you know, I say that as somebody with roots there, but like, it could be a grim place. It's about people working hard and, you know, getting through the week and providing for their families and things like that, you know, very much like a kind of blue collar area in America or something. And the one passion they kind of have is football, and they love their team, and they've been let down kind of recently, certainly, by an owner who hasn't really backed them as much. But you know, if they do get in somebody who has like that, the city changes when their team is doing well. You know, it's a lot more of it's a happier place. It's a bigger buzz, and yeah, that's good to see. So I hope they do well. Not at the expense of Crystal Palace, but I hope they do well. Stoke Bournemouth. I mean, Stoke are just in serious trouble right now. I mean, fair play to Bournemouth for getting a win. I've said Bournemouth needed a win, and they really did. That was a real kind of relegation battle. But I mean, a Stoke are like West Ham and Everton, where it's just like they shouldn't be down where they are, but I guess they are, and that's the competitive nature of the Premier League. Is, you know, you can have teams come up and play really well at Huddersfield and Brighton, and then suddenly big established teams, you know, Stoke, West Ham, Everton. You know, Everton's been in the Premier League, I think, ever since it existed. Stoke have been there a long time as well. One of those goes down, that would be a real shock, but we'll see. It's, you know, early days yet. Genuinely thought Swansea would beat Leicester. Genuinely thought that. Fair play to Leicester. Funny how they sacked their manager and then suddenly start playing really well. happened with Ranieri last season. Craig Shakespeare, I feel like, was never going to be a long-term manager because he doesn't have that name, does he? You know, any sign of them not doing quite so well, and he was going to be gone. So it didn't surprise me that he was, sacked before this game. Who are they going to bring in? No idea. I don't think there's anybody. Like people are saying, like Ancelotti, but he's not going to Leicester, for God's sake. As much as Leicester did win the league 2 years ago, they're still not a big side. So we'll see, I guess. I think most Leicester fans would probably be happy with a mid-table finish, and just try and get some stability and build the club up that way. The league win, which I'm planning on making a video on as well, just chatting about that, was probably one of the biggest shocks in the history of sport ever, without doubt. And to expect their team to do similar every season I don't think any Leicester fan expected that. But obviously they shouldn't be down near the bottom of the table either, because they still have some very, very good players. One player I think they should play way more often is Okazaki up front. I think that guy is really good, very underrated, very much like Son at Spurs, very, very underrated by English counterparts, shall we say, and Vardy and Kane, who are both very, very good players as well. But I think the English media focuses more on the English players, which is reasonable. But I think he does very, very well. And like Asian football used to be a bit of a joke, but there are some very good players coming out of Japan, Korea. Very, very good. We've seen quite a few of them over the year. Ji-Sung Park, Man United, was a phenomenal player, very underrated. One of Alex Ferguson's favourite players. There. Actually watched a video not too long ago. Crystal Palace, funnily enough, were the first team in the Premier League to have Chinese players. Fan Zhai and Sun Jai joined. They were both really, really good players. People saw it as a marketing strategy, but they were both phenomenally good players. I remember watching them and just being really surprised. I watched a video actually where they, on the Crystal Palace YouTube channel, where they actually went and chatted to Fan Zhai about it. He comes across as a really nice guy and still loves Crystal Palace, and honestly one of the best players I've seen in a Crystal Palace shirt. So I feel like Asian football is starting to build and grow, and we're seeing these kind of fantastic players come through now. But Okazaki's a very underrated player, I think. Southampton beat West Brom. I mean, again, probably not the most exciting game of the weekend, so a good win for Southampton. West Brom could be very hard to break down. Yeah, that's really all I've got to say on that one. Everton, Arsenal, I mean, Everton, right? I mean, so I'll watch the highlights of this one. Everton are just, I don't even know what to say. That was Arsenal's best performance of the season, and I don't feel like, Everton, they just play, they let Arsenal just play, and when you let Arsenal play, they can be devastating. Sanchez, no one ever doubted Sanchez is a fantastic player. You might doubt his commitment this season with everything that's going on, but he ran that show, and if you're going to let Alexis Sanchez do that, then Arsenal will punish you. One of the things I found funny was the commentator when Mesut Ozil scored his goal, which, for those who don't know, Sanchez crossed in and Ozil scored a header. People, the commentator was like, "Oh, I guess that answers some of his critics," and I was thinking to myself, in what way does that answer any of his critics? Because all his critics are saying, he's lazy and he's not up for big games, he disappears in big games. Now, Everton is not a big game, no offence to Everton, and scoring a header does not mean that you aren't lazy, does it? That doesn't answer any critics. If that's all you have to do, just score a goal and suddenly no one can say anything about your performance. It's ridiculous. But yeah, Arsenal should have had 10 in this game. If Aaron Ramsey could finish, and if Lacazette had a few chances to begin with as well, and seriously, I'm not even exaggerating, that should have been 10-2. Everton were woeful. They were awful. Jordan Pickford in goal, used to play for Sunderland last season, who got relegated and were terrible. I swear he has had more to do in this Everton goal than he ever had in the Sunderland goal, because I don't know where to go with Everton, because I feel like they signed a lot of very good players and it's just not happening for them. Michael Keane, very good player, they signed him, like him alongside Ashley Williams. You'd think that's a really good centre-back partnering. Pickford, again, I rate him, I think he's a very good goalkeeper. I just don't know what's going on. Sigurdsson's a very good player. I don't think Everton know where the hell he should be playing. Rooney scored a fantastic goal. There just doesn't seem to be any pace about Everton in any way. They are bringing through some good young players, Calvert-Lewis, Tom Davies, stuff like that, and they are very good, but man oh man, I don't know where to go with Everton. Like, I don't think Koeman, I'm going to say this now, I don't think Koeman's a very good manager. I think he was overrated at Southampton. I think Southampton have got a very good setup, and I think we've seen where a few different managers have come in, and Southampton have always done quite well. Last season they had Claude Puel, who was like never been in the Premier League before, and they did okay. They were never in danger of getting relegated. They weren't really ever going to challenge for Europe, but they did okay. This season again, I can't remember the name of their manager. Who is it? It's I keep thinking Pochettino, but it isn't Pochettino, is it? I can't remember what his name is now. Is it Pellegrini? Might be Pellegrini, I think. I think he used to play for Liverpool. I could be confused, but and again, Southampton doing okay. I think Southampton have a good setup there, good young players. They seem to buy quite well, and I think Koeman was overrated for what he did there. I'm gonna say it because seems to have brought Everton backwards now, and he seems to be out of ideas right now as to what they're doing. So I feel for Everton fans, because you think they sold Lukaku, but they did buy a lot of players. Their net spend is obviously a lot higher. They did spend money. That's always been the criticism of Everton, is that they don't spend money, and it's not going well for them. They're in the relegation zone, and something needs to change basically. So it'd be interesting to see how that goes. Credit to Arsenal, they played fantastically well, but Everton let them play that well. People might be saying, "Oh, Arsenal, they're back." No, they're not, because when they play other teams, good teams, they won't be allowed that sort of space and time to do the things that they were doing. I can't believe how bad Everton were in defence. They were shocking. Speaking of shocking defences, Liverpool. Something about Merseyside this weekend is just, I don't even know. They just forgot how to defend. Liverpool, my God. Lovren. I read an article where they were saying that Lovren was it was like he forgot he was on a football pitch. He forgot he was a footballer. He was that bad. And honestly, he was. Even Jurgen Klopp himself said that if he'd been wearing a pair of trainers, that first goal wouldn't have happened. If he'd been on the pitch wearing a pair of trainers himself, it wouldn't have happened. And he's probably right. That's the horrible thing. You very rarely hear a manager come out and criticise his players. And obviously it's a slightly indirect way of doing it, but my God, Liverpool were bad. Harry Kane, though, is very, very good, and Son as well. They are both really good. In my opinion, Harry Kane should be winning that, Ballon d'Or. He plays in a way more competitive league than Ronaldo and Messi. And he's scoring for fun. I think he's got 45 goals this calendar year so far. We're not even in November, it's the middle of October, for God's sake. Or end of October, I guess. And everyone goes on about Messi, Ronaldo and them scoring and doing well and stuff like that, but no offence to Tottenham, but is playing in an inferior team to Barcelona and Real Madrid. You know, but he is doing better. I think he should be winning the Ballon d'Or. I don't think he will, because I just don't think he will. I think he'll go to Messi or Ronaldo as usual, but I feel like if you said to me right now, you can have one player, because the Palace any player in the world, I would choose Harry Kane. 100%. I just think he is, like, at the minute, I think he's the best striker in the world. Not necessarily saying that he is, like, the best player in the world. I know that's weird because I said he should win the Ballon d'Or, but, like, I think he's playing better than Messi, Ronaldo. But if you look at those two when they're actually on fire, they are a step above, yes. But I think Kane is just more consistent. He does more for his team. He works really hard. You know, he's getting better and better and better. And I think, like, he is the best English striker since Alan Shearer, and he probably will be better than Alan Shearer for England. And Alan Shearer is like one of my all-time heroes as well. So yeah, it's going to be interesting. I think I told this last week, but I still remember a friend of mine when Harry Kane played for England. He was just like, "Oh, this guy's overrated. Oh, he's never going to do anything." And Harry Kane scored after like 5 minutes after coming on his debut. But yeah, Spurs were rampant. Liverpool were atrocious, just atrocious. And yeah, like, I mean, Spurs played really well and Liverpool played badly. The thing with the Everton game and Arsenal was Arsenal played quite well. I mean, if you look at Everton's second goal, it was awful. Like, Arsenal, what the hell are you doing there? But I think Arsenal played pretty well. Sanchez was phenomenal, but Everton was so bad. I mean, I don't know. I think I saw Jamie Carragher tweet about the Liverpool game where he said that the problem they had under Brendan Rodgers was that they were just conceding too many goals, and that they currently still have 4 out of the 5 defenders who Brendan Rodgers had playing for them. It's like, why has this happened? And I feel like that's a good point. Like, it's interesting that these teams, they keep buying, like, attacking midfielders, strikers, wingers, and not many people are buying defenders. It's almost as if they feel like the pressure is on them to sign these big signings and these exciting players. You know, Liverpool signed Keita from RB Leipzig, who isn't even going to join them until next season. And you're like, why the hell are you not signing defenders like Lovren? I mean, the guy should be finished at Liverpool, really. Like, it's not worked out for him. I feel sorry for him. I think he was a very good player at Southampton, but it's just not worked out for him at Liverpool. And yeah, you know, nobody, I don't get me wrong, I'm like the same on FIFA or anything. Nobody wants to buy defenders. They're not glamorous, but you need them. So yeah, it's interesting. Anyway, I think that's gonna probably be a lot this week. Next week's fixtures, we've got Man United Spurs, cracking match. Arsenal Swansea, that'll be a bigger test for Arsenal than that Everton game without doubt. Crystal Palace West Ham, that's a massive game for both teams. Liverpool Huddersfield, that'll be very interesting. I'd expect Watford to beat Stoke. West Brom home to Man City again. I would expect Man City to win. I was going to say that West Brom are a tough side to break down, but I think Man City are going to wipe them apart. Chelsea Bournemouth, you know, I guess Chelsea probably would want that game. No offence to Bournemouth. Brighton Southampton, tough match. Leicester Everton, that'll be a bit of a doozy, I'm sure. And then Burnley Newcastle for what could possibly be one of the most boring games of the weekend, but we'll see. So some interesting games coming up next week in terms of changes. I'm not going to do anything just yet, but I think probably we'll get rid of Jones, obviously, and bring someone else in. I might just switch him out for Fosu Mensah. I think Palace is going to beat West Ham, and I don't think we're going to concede a goal, so I might put Fosu Mensah in. Actually, he hasn't played the last 3 games, so maybe I won't. Maybe I'll put in another Palace defender. Take a risk, and I'll get rid of Sissoko too, as well, probably. Colback hasn't played all season, and he's injured. Look at that, if I'd have had Speroni in goal, he would have got more points than De Gea. How about that? Otherwise, we'll probably keep it the same. I mean, I can't change my entire squad just for this match, but I'll probably keep Harry Kane as captain going forward. Might be tempted to add in some Man City players though. They are expensive, but they're good. Anyway guys, thank you so much for watching. As always, it's been my pleasure. And I'll catch you next time.